Okay, so welcome back everybody. This is Night Flight, and today I have the privilege to talk to Lena Pu. Her website will be fabulousfrequencies.com. And
Lena's Fabulous Frequencies.
Oh, Lena's Fabulous Frequencies. Thank you. So, and without further ado, Lena, thank you so much for coming. I know you are busy, and I know you are a very silent and private person.
Oh, you can tell. I do, Judith. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It really is a privilege, and especially since you just interviewed Masaki, a friend of mine, I think it's a really great partnership we have here as a community, internationally connected. I think it's really awesome.
Okay, thank you. So you used to work, I have to read this, in restoring sensitive environmental habitat for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. What is that?
Yes. Okay. So I used to work for the federal government. This is after I came out of college. I got my degree in landscape architecture, and I focused on environmental restoration work because I was, very much into the environment, sustainable, not Agenda 21 or 2030, the true sustainable in terms of preserving our natural habitat. So that was my focus during my college years. And so when I started working for the Corps of Engineers, my last project that I worked on was restoring wetland habitat for endangered species of wildlife, fish and fowl. And if you are familiar with the importance of wetlands, is that man has levied, shored up, destroyed all the wetlands because the soil is so fertile. And here in California, we basically burned up and destroyed all the wetlands to make room for agriculture because the soil is so rich. What happens is that all that water, which used to be through the wetlands, it used to kind of like be the lungs of the earth, would prevent soil runoff into the ocean. Well, so anyways, to really cut this short, once you destroy the wetlands, you get all sorts of problems. And so what my job was really to do was to fix what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had done, not so good, actually a lot of devastation to the natural environment. So that was my job. And so I did that for a couple years, and then got married, had kids, and then became a stay-at-home mom for many years. And during that time, I did a lot of freelance work. I did a lot of environmental design, actually did some architectural design work too. So I'm really much a designer and with an environmental focus. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I guess it was your children that brought you to the subject of Wi-Fi, 5G, and everything that is connected to it, correct?
Yes. It was basically my start. When I realized they were using Chromebooks wirelessly, I started to look into this, and I asked the school principal at that time. Later on, the entire school trustee. I talked to all of them. I ended up talking to the whole chain of command, one after another. I said, "You guys cannot do this. You cannot irradiate the kids." And I thought it was just a simple problem. Let's just go back to wires. But it was a national issue. And then I later found out it was an international issue. And so one thing led to another. And then I became a spokesperson against cell towers, small cell towers, 5G. And I started fighting state bills. So it started really humbly. I started very humbly fighting Wi-Fi in schools and found myself in the state legislation, talking and giving testimony in front of senators. So it was kind of an interesting road. Never thought I'd become active this way politically, but because of my background in knowing how devastating certain hidden invisible toxins can be, I felt we're at a crossroad. You know, we have to make a decision as a body of, you know, people. We need to move on this. We cannot sit still. This is make or break.
Mhm.
And it's devastating. You know, the numbers of percentage of birds, the bees, the insect population is very indicative, and also the tree die-offs. You know, maybe I'll go into that too, the tree die-offs.
Mhm.
And my theory behind why certain trees shouldn't be dying are dying. And
Mhm.
these are in pristine forests. These are forests that aren't even touched necessarily by 5G or wireless radiation. Why are they dying? And so it's all linked together. You know, the chemical from the skies, you know, the geoengineering that's happening. It's all interrelated.
Mhm.
It's all
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I started looking into a whole bunch of other problems. Why, you know, why would we want to destroy the children and our whole living environment? And that's when I really got into the deep part of the deep state. You know. And
You gave a very wonderful talk at the Silicon Valley Health Institute. I watched that, of course I did, on YouTube. And yes, I will link below so that everybody can watch it later on as well. And there you said something very, very interesting, that those frequencies do not belong here, and that usually the Earth is protected from these frequencies. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
yes, Judith, I call these waves xeno waves, XENO dash waves, because xeno is foreign,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't belong here on Earth. If you look at the frequencies, the microwave frequency bandwidth, other than what the sun puts out, you know, through solar spots that do reach the Earth. Some of it does reach the Earth, but not enough to harm us because we're used to whatever it was that was natural. But apart from, you know, those frequencies that do reach Earth, the majority of the microwave spectrum do not reach Earth. And that is the entire, you know, radio frequency spectrum, which is the microwaves, including the millimeter waves, all the way to the terahertz waves. Now the infrared to the UV, that's from the sun. That will hit the Earth. And that's actually what we need. We need the infrared, entire spectrum of the sunlight, all the way to the UV. Okay, we also need the UV. We need to be exposed through the entire circadian rhythm of the sunlight. And each portion of that light does something for us. For instance, certain portions of the sun will give us the vitamin D, certain part of it will actually kill microbes, the viruses,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the bacteria, the very virulent ones. And we need the UV to do that. And that's another theory why I feel we have all this mold issue, is because we're not getting the correct sunlight spectrum onto the Earth, and that's being blocked. So anyways, the light is so important, the sunlight is so important, yet that part is being blocked through geoengineering,
Mm-hmm.
through sunscreen, through our own, you know, shielding, being indoors, and not letting the sunlight strike our eyes and hitting into the pineal gland. You know, that's very disruptive to our circadian, that's very disruptive to our whole body's hormonal system, everything, you know, the sleep cycle. We run on cycles. And so when we avoid the sun cycle, it impacts every organ, every cell in our system. And I'm going to link that to the coronavirus later on.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a good, you know, educational beginning to
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to go into later.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's happening is we're shutting out the sunlight and we're exposing ourselves to the things that do not belong on Earth, the whole microwave, millimeter wave, terahertz microwave region. And what is very interesting, Judith, is that since you saw my presentation with the Silicon Valley Health Institute, I showed my blood study.
Yeah.
You know what will break apart the sticky blood. Do you know there's something that will break apart the sticky blood, that prevents our blood from being sticky? Is sunlight. Yeah. So microwaves make your blood sticky, but sunlight unsticks your blood. It actually electrifies your body in such a way that the whole system then is flowing again. So I liken it to when you're drawing in the sunlight, you're actually structuring your water inside your body. You're charging it in the correct way. You know, the negative charges need to be a certain way, and negative and positive, and especially if you're grounded. And I don't recommend you ground in cities because there's so much dirty electricity, so much electrical field from the ground. And I've measured it, that I actually become an antenna, you know. So anyways, if you get a chance, go out to nature, you know, ground yourself, take your, you know, your shoes off and ground yourself, let the sunlight strike you. And you're not only discharging all the microwave that you've been absorbing all this time, you're also purifying your blood. You know, it's purifying your blood. You're restructuring the water in your body. So it's there's so many things we actually need to educate ourselves on. What is the truth? What is natural? What is healing? You know, what is truly, instead of always focusing on, oh, this is bad, you know, EMS are bad. Yeah, we do know that is bad, but I get tired.
What are you going to do about it?
You know? I do, and I go, well, but on the positive side, you know, there are good things. So, you know, the sun does this, and you know, natural structured water from streams do this, you know, and isn't that lovely, and isn't that beautiful? You know, let's appreciate, you know, the good things that we still do have. Yeah.
So, and we also have a very, very nice Nazi connection, yeah, with a Nazi scientist.
Yes.
I think that we should mention that.
Whew. I'll share with you, Judith, something that I haven't shared with anybody so far is that, you know, I talk about structured water because I personally have a fascination and obsession with understanding water. I'm still learning. There's so much to learn about it. And the more I learn about water, how much more appreciative I am about what we've been given, all the gifts, the natural gifts that we've been given. And it makes me respect, you know, our creator that much more, and how wonderfully we're made. Hermann Pichon, who is the Nazi well, I don't want to call him a Nazi. He was a scientist who supported the Nazi regime, okay, to be clear. He was smuggled through Operation Paperclip to the United States and continued to do his radar research. And now, is he a compromised figure? I say absolutely, because why would you give your national security determination of an important health issue into the hands of a scientist who came from an enemy nation? You don't do that, you know. And the fact that when I started to look at his own research, I found he was also obsessed with two things: water and blood. He's done extensive research on water and blood, both of the things that I've also been doing my own research on. And I was just floored. I said, if you study those two things in conjunction with microwaves of the entire spectrum of from the low, mid-range to the high range, you will find every portion of it will affect your water. Every portion of it affects water. And that's when I realized for a fact that there's no way he could not know. And in fact, many of his studies will say athermal. There are athermal effects. Well, if there's athermal effects, then why are you saying that only thermal effects will harm the public. Then why did you set a standard, an RF guideline so high and say that anything under it at the athermal or non-thermal, non-tissue heating level is moot, is non-effective? I mean, it's not going to affect you biologically, you know, health-wise and physically and biologically, you know, all. So, Judith, it's, I remember when I made this discovery, looking at his research, and especially when I stumbled upon that chart that I showed during my presentation, my blood ran cold, because I have been looking at blood for a year, and it takes no amount of time, 15 minutes of one frequency exposure, one frequency. And I did this in my own home, because it's my home is far enough away from all my neighbors that it's completely RF clean. And so I have an old router that only gave off 2.45 gigahertz. Okay, it's not 2, you know, 2.45 and 5.8 is only one frequency. And I tested myself, and I was actually my daughter's science fair project, because she wanted to do a live blood analysis on me. And so I set up the whole thing for her. And I said, okay, you expose me with that one frequency. And within 15 minutes, my blood started to, okay, so they were pairing up. They were starting to pair up. Within 30 minutes, it was starting to get more clumpy. Mm-hmm. And within 45 minutes, they were in chains. So I don't understand how any scientist can study water and study blood and not know instantly that there are immediate effects from exposures to microwaves.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, the FCC is still working with his recommendations.
Yes.
And do you have the impression that they never even bothered to do their own? Oh, okay.
Oh, no. They don't have any scientists or medical personnel that they actually have from the very beginning relied on other organizations for the RF standard or guideline. They look at the ANSI and they look at IEEE. And what's interesting is that Herman Pichon was on the board of directors for both of them at one point in time. And I think if I remember correctly, I think he founded ANSI, the American National Standard of Institute or something, yeah, something like that. But the IEEE is actually an internationally known organization, and that's the electronics engineers or organization. What's also interesting to know, Judith, about those two organizations is that they're not even a legitimate agency. It's like it's a membership it's like a club membership. They're not even an official government agency. And here the FCC is relying on them for the standards. And they do no testings. IEEE ANSI never did any testings. Mm-hmm. And they're all, they're engineers and electronics industry type people. None of them are health focused. So there's just a lot of compromised and obviously deliberate shirking of the responsibility. And the FCC will admit they've never done any safety testing on any products. Yet they're licensing the entire spectrum of microwaves, which is 3,000 frequencies. Yeah, you hear Tom Wheeler's speech, he says, oh yeah, we're gonna unleash 5G on you guys, and you're gonna love it. He says, yeah, you guys, we're gonna put out the entire microwave spectrum and expose you guys to all of it.
Yay!
You guys get industry gets to pick whatever they want to use. You just tell us what you want and we'll license it, you know. So it was a doomsday speech, really. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, what an evil person you are, you know? Like, oh my gosh. And then what was it, a couple of months later or a year later, 6G, which is the terahertz range, was also released. And I just said, oh God, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to ramp up our activity here, because our Earth is not going to be able to withstand this. I mean, really, there's no way. We cannot coexist. Okay. These frequencies cannot coexist with the frequencies of the Earth. What we had before, there's no way we can. We're not meant to be together. You know, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, there is a reason why the ionosphere and so forth are filtering it out.
Yes, and, it's impacting actually not just our planet, but our connection with the sun. And it's impacting all of it. And it's impacting in ways that we cannot foresee. And by the time you see the effect, it's too late. You know, you don't want to get to that point. And one of the things I was going to mention about the whole environment is that you have to look at how the geoengineering is affecting the entire globe, right? We can see what it's doing, but there's another hidden agenda that I like to bring to your audience, Judith, and that is the fiber optics. Fiber optics actually is not safe. It is a biophoton machine, so to speak. And if anyone has ever done alternative, or I really shouldn't say alternative, I should say naturopathic, you know, the real means of healing. Most people have heard of Rife machines, right? Yeah. Rife machines, you know, you hold these rods and then you have these electrical impulses that feed information, healing frequencies into your body. So you're getting healed through the frequencies. Well, there's a biophoton machine that I have that does the same principle, but it's through light and it's through fiber optics. So I'm holding on to these rods and I, you know, tell this device which frequencies I want, and it'll send it through me through light frequencies. So it's like a higher octave than electricity. Well, fiber optics is exactly the same thing. It's light frequencies, it's information running on the fiber optics. And my theory is that it's impacting our soil, it's impacting the microbiome of the soil. And that is what's causing a lot of the tree deaths as well. It's not just the aluminum, strontium, barium from the fallout of the geoengineering, but it's the combination of the metals with the fiber optic information that's impacting the underground world of our Earth. So we can all see that, you know, all this geoengineering is happening on the surface. We know on the surface, terrestrial area, all the cell towers are bad. But underneath that, on the Earth, underneath the soil, in the Earth's crust, it's not just fracking, but also, I believe the fiber optics is impacting the trees' health, because the roots of the trees has a symbiotic relationship with the microbes in the soil in order to be able to draw the water. It doesn't draw the water all by itself. It needs all these microbes to have this symbiotic, you know, union to be able to do things to the water to make it. And so when you have fiber optics where the light is impacting the soil of the Earth combined with the metals, it's a recipe for disaster, I think, with the microbes in the Earth. Yeah.
And just to make it very clear, 5G or maybe later 6G, whatever, that will not substitute 3G, 4G. That it's all layered. They are all still there, correct?
Yes, yes.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, yeah. 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. I know people try to define what 5G is. Oh, it's all, it's all 5G. No, it's 4G. In reality, it really doesn't matter anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because 5G really incorporates 4G, 3G, 2G. So you really can't say, oh, 5G is not 2G or 3G.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the entire spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, when I explain microwave frequencies, I say it's just all of them. It's just all of them. And 5G incorporates all of them. Now I want to clarify, when the industry describes these things, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G really talks about, is more frequency specific. Once you get to 5G, 6G and 7G and 8G, it's talking about system application, no longer about frequencies, because they're still using the same frequencies with the, the 5G and below. So 5G is about the Internet of Things, and 6G is about satellite connecting systems and connecting the satellites to what's on the ground. 8G is, I don't know, it's just this, it's almost like quantum. It's going into this whole realm of nano technology. And in fact, actually 6G is already doing that. So 6G, because they're using terahertz waves, they're going to be able to impact nanotechnology like never before, like you cannot imagine. That's why they're introducing terahertz. That's why they're introducing what they call 6G, because they want to control the electrons, the protons, the atomic structure, the molecular structure of anything on our planet. This is how nefarious it can get, and it is going to get if you really understand the whole direction, the whole future mindset of these technocrats. It's about getting control down to smaller and smaller and smaller units. If you look at 2G, the first two generations, the waveforms were a lot longer. They introduced longer microwaves. I mean, are they safe? No. I mean, none of them are safe. But then as you get to 3G, 4G, the wave starts getting shorter and shorter. Shorter the waves become, the more impact it's going to have on even more microscopic, items, just because of the way it's resonating, its ability to resonate with the size of that item. So 5G, we're talking about millimeter waves. So that's going to impact microbes. We know that. We know it affects bacteria. We know it affects yeast. So pretty small, right? Pretty small. But you know what? It doesn't stop there. They're introducing terahertz waves. So they're going to be impacting molecules. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so electrons and protons, that's the direction for 6Gs and, and on. So got to see the big picture. We can't just stop at, oh, this is the Internet of Things and that's all it is. It's going to get quantum. Okay, it's getting quantum. So it's crazy. Yeah.
So now there is also a correlation between oxygen intake or let's say oxygen absorption of the cells and 5G, and maybe we can start there, because as you said in your email, you think there is a correlation between coronavirus and this entire debacle in Wuhan and the 5G. So maybe that is a good point to start.
Okay. So Wuhan is very inland. It's kind of in the middle of China. It's south of Beijing and west of Shanghai and north of Chengdu. So it really is like smack dab in the middle of the most industrial cities of China. Air quality is horrible.
Yeah.
And I've heard that, you know, they burn their trash, they incinerate it, and it's this huge production. And there's 11 million people living in this city. The health of the people before the rollout of 5G most likely isn't the best. There were already respiratory issues. People were already immune compromised just from the lack of sanitation within that town. Now, if you are to roll out dense numbers of microwaving devices, you know, small cells to towers, you're impacting a town that's already, you know, suffering. So yes, you're definitely going to have problems. And now I looked at the frequencies that China's using, and they're not using anything different than the rest of the world. And I'm just wondering now why did Wuhan get, you know, the virus? You know, why are they suffering from the virus? Because there were 11 cities involved in the rollout of the 5G in China. They're not the only pilot city. They're one of them, one of the 11. What's really interesting, Judith, is that this is how the elite do this, is when they roll out a certain new system, they don't do it little bit by little bit so that people wake up and go, oh, this is happening to this town, we better not do it in our town. What they do is they roll it out all at once and then hit the kill switch at the same time. That's what they've done in the United States. And I've noticed that because in the town next to me was a pilot city, and they rolled out all the antennas, all the small cells all at once, and then they hit the kill switch all at once. Anyway, so this is what they did with China. And, you know, what everybody was wondering is, you know, does this virus exist? You know, does it exist? Well, I'm thinking, well, if it doesn't exist, then shouldn't all the other 11 cities also be suffering from the same effects? Because I know Shanghai, the air quality there is terrible too. It is so bad. It may even be worse.
Yeah, I've been to Shanghai and to Peking as well. Although I have to say, okay, at least when I was there, Shanghai was okay, but Peking can really be, wow. You do not even want to step out.
Wow, the air quality is that bad.
You can see it. You can see all. Sorry, it's that bad that you can see the dirt, the dust. You can really see it, and there's no more sunlight. It looks as if a heavy storm is coming, and yeah. Bangkok had the same problems a couple of years ago, but they did something, so it's better there. But you're right, China and Chinese cities, they suffer from air pollution big time.
Yeah. So the fact that they've rolled out 11 cities and Wuhan is the only one that seems to be having serious similar illnesses, the pneumonia, and that, you know, they're linking it to the coronavirus. I will say that it is a virus that's you know, running rampant, and is it engineered? I believe so, because from my research on outbreaks, every single outbreak that has ever happened has always been involved with engineered, you know, bioengineered microbes. They're none of them are wild. In fact, I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, down in Disneyland, there was a measles outbreak, and the measles that they found were from vaccines. They're not natural measles. You know, they were the strain of the measles were from vaccines. So we're, you know, our community, our environment is so artificial now that I just, none of it seems, anything could be wild anymore. You know, nothing is natural anymore. So, and, you know, they said Wuhan has a Bio4 lab about 10 to 20 miles away. You know, could it be from there? You know, they had Canadian, US people smuggling in the coronavirus. You know, there's tons of strains of coronaviruses. And did it come from that, you know, biolab? Who knows? But what it does tell me is that we need to get rid of those Bio4 labs, period. And whether it did escape from that lab or not, none of it should.
It was set free.
Because this coronavirus is obviously engineered. So it's engineered somewhere. And I don't care where it is. I don't care where it was engineered. These Bio4 labs everywhere in the whole entire world, every single one of them should be shut down. And this is a very good example of what is happening right now in China. Is we should make an international statement that every single one of these biolabs is not necessary. And every single one of them should be shut down. So it doesn't matter where the virus came from. It's engineered, okay, one. And wherever it came from a Bio4 lab, you know, whether it's Wuhan or not. So, you know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And yes, China is suffering. And I do believe, even though it is engineered, that we can still, our own immune system can fight it and can overcome it. And I believe that as it passes through to the other countries, you know, there's better health. Well, I can't really say healthcare is better, but the sanitation's better. And the people are probably healthier.
And maybe no 5G.
And no 5G, right? Exactly. So if you've got those three things, I think you'll be okay. Make sure you live in a wireless-free environment in your home. Sleep in a place that's RF clean, and that way you'll be able to heal. And second is build up your own immune system now, and make sure your air is clean. So those basic necessities, I think you'll be okay. And actually, I don't think the coronavirus is going to be as devastating as it is in China, in the rest of the world. And also, I think we also have better care in general for each other. Whereas in China, they did a lot of things that you know was very questionable about how the government handled it, because they were suppressing the 8 doctors, the Chinese doctors that were trying to raise, you know, the alarm, the red flag that, hey guys, there's something really serious going on here. We're seeing this huge numbers of cases that just came out of nowhere. And they're all the same, you know, all the symptoms are the same. What's going on here? And then the government basically told them to shush, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. And then before you know it, you know, the suppression actually became something they couldn't contain anymore. Now, how is this 5G affecting these people directly? And I can tell you this is through my blood studies, we're looking at not 5G frequencies. It will make your blood sticky. If your blood is sticky, you're not serving all the capillaries. And if your lung, you know, all the capillaries in your lung need, you know, finite single file blood to be able to draw in the oxygen. Well, you're not doing that. So you're already starving your body's ability to draw the oxygen through your lungs. And especially if your lungs are already inflamed, that's even less ability for you to be able to take in oxygen. I looked at the frequencies that China's using, and especially Wuhan. I found an article, Huawei 5G spectrum. Here's their public policy position, and all the frequencies that they're using is the same as the rest of the world. the frequency they're using that's closest to the millimeter waves is 28 gigahertz and 38 gigahertz and around there. It's that portion, if you know how millimeter waves work, certain frequencies attenuate with water molecules, certain ones attenuate with oxygen molecules. The 60 gigahertz attenuates with the oxygen, whereas the 22 to 28 gigahertz attenuates with the with the water molecules. Their millimeter wave, the 28 gigahertz attenuates with the water molecules the best. We're also being exposed to that frequency, and then China is too now. It may not be affecting us as much because we're healthier. Our air pollution, we're not suffering from air pollution depending on where you live. But being in these big cities in Wuhan, especially Wuhan, if they're already suffering from respiratory illnesses and then they're taking in this frequency that attenuates with water, it's going to make their blood even stickier, more sticky than the normal. So they're probably asphyxiating in that way, that their oxygen molecules, their water molecules are being impacted doubly. So it's not just a 2.45 gigahertz from the Wi-Fi system, but it's also from the exposure of that millimeter wave portion of the 5G in Wuhan. If there's compounding problems, I had talked about metals in the air. So if you're taking all the particulates in Wuhan, and it's all these metals and whatever particulates are floating in the air, you expose it to microwave frequencies of various kinds, it's going to energize them. It's going to make them very reactive. You're breathing all that in. The metals are actually going to get lodged in your lungs. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch in that not only is the microwaves impacting the water structure, the blood, and the iron in your system, but it's also impacting the metal. So you've got organic compounds and inorganic compounds, and the microwaves doing both things to both of them. The metals is going to be acting like a radioactive particle. This is why it's so devastating for people to put cell phones against their head. The cell phone's doing two things. It's breaking down the blood-brain barrier. 900 megahertz. Okay, it's been studied. Specifically 900 megahertz will break down your blood-brain barrier. And what do cell phones use? 900 megahertz and 1800 megahertz. Those two are like, it's like a chord. It's like, it's like a piano chord. It's a multiplying effect, So you're breaking down the blood-brain barrier. What happens is then the metals get into your brain, and the metals inside your brain act as an antenna for the microwaves. Then it's almost like you're getting nuclear particles inside your brain because it's constantly being activated. It's constantly, it's heat. It's like a not a heat source. It's more like it's become like a radioactive source inside your brain, because if you're constantly using the phone, it's bombarding that metal particle. Same thing with the lungs. If you're breathing in all the metals and you're constantly bathed in all this microwave, you're getting zapped inside your lungs. So it's impacting the blood, it's impacting the plasma, it's impacting the iron in your blood. You're already inflamed. You're not getting the oxygen. You're breathing in particulates, and the particulates themselves then become little mini antennas, which almost act as if they're radioactive. This is why, these are my theories of why they're dying from pneumonia, especially if they're already immune compromised. And it's so bad. I'm hearing the statistics is 1 out of every 5 person in China or Wuhan, that area, have died. No, that's huge. 20%, 1 out of every 5 person will die. So Um,
Yeah,
it's a shocking statistic.
yeah. So, in other words, the air pollution, then already everything that has to do with breathing is already compromised. Then maybe overworked, not in the best fit position. The body probably not completely healthy, and on top of that, the 5G, and that was what probably made it so devastating.
Yes. Yeah. And people can't get out of it.
Yeah.
So Wuhan is about 3,000 miles, 3,000 square miles. And they've deployed 10,000 small cells and about 3,000 cell towers. So I did my calculations, and for every square mile, it's about 3 small cells and 1 cell tower, in addition to whatever infrastructure that's already existing there. In reality, compared to what I've seen here in the States, it's actually not terribly a whole lot compared to what I've seen. But yet, it's a thorough blanketing. I think what people need to keep in mind also is that China is a very heavily controlled surveillance state. So people can only buy and sell using their phones. That is the other angle that people are not mentioning, is that not only are they surrounded by the 5G, but they have to have their devices on them all the time. So everyone, I believe every single person in Wuhan are compromised, immunocompromised. Whether how bad it is or not, depending on their age, I don't believe any single one of them can be healthy. Actually, in fact, I don't think anybody in China can be healthy if every single one of them rely on a cell phone. And if it's constantly on, it's constantly irradiating. And in fact, the Chinese government has made it such that every single citizen in China basically has to use a cell phone to be able to do anything. It's a social cultural mess. And are the people even able to heal themselves? The first thing they need to do is shut their phone off. They need to cut their ties to their phone. Number one, that's the easiest and probably the most important thing they need to do.
Would be good advice for the rest of us as well.
Yes, yes. Your phone emits, if it's a smartphone, it's constantly emitting, trying to chit chat with the next cell tower. You have to turn off all the cellular data, whatever, Wi-Fi, got to turn off, keep it on airplane mode. And if you have an RF meter, use your RF meter to check it to see if it's off, and then you put it in your pocket. But preferably, you don't even have a smartphone. That's probably the best. Because again, we're at a crossroad where this whole AI technocracy is going to take all of humanity, as well as every living sentient being on this earth, animal, fauna, microbes, are all going to be impacted, because the end game is full control down to the molecular level. Exactly. Of all things. That is truly their intention. So we cannot be married. We need to divorce ourselves from this and start learning how to. Because look at Wuhan. That's a great example of what happens to society when the government forces an entire group of people to do something. They're all suffering. 1 out of 5 people are dying because of it. I'm not slamming China or the government. I'm just saying that we are also consenting to it.
Yeah, we are
So
participating.
we're participating in it. We're accepting it, and we think it's great. You know, we're like salivating over the next fastest download. Yeah, you know, fast download. That's awesome. You know, those are just little pennies they throw at us.
We
to get us
we
started.
just forgot to mention it will be your last download.
Yeah, you're right. I know, your last one. Better enjoy it.
So you probably have seen these short snippets of videos as well, where somebody is standing in the street and then they start shaking and they drop dead. Another person, everything from Wuhan. Another person is sitting at a desk, working at a laptop, and then all of a sudden he falls off the chair, some seizures, and then dead.
Huh. Yeah.
And I have to say, I looked at a couple of those videos. I have to say that is not the hallmarks of a really bad flu.
That's not a flu.
No.
That's something else.
Yeah.
If it's true.
You haven't
well,
seen them?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've seen pictures of people that are on the sidewalk, supposedly dead. You know, there's just like bodies on the sidewalk. I've seen those.
Yeah, there you never know. Well, there are plenty of them.
Yeah,
especially on Twitter. And
I don't know if they're doing this to, you know, I just stick with what's factual.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in sensational sensational ideas, and I don't like to pass on these type of or promote them. And whether it's true or not, I mean, if it really is someone's just keeling over, dying from doing whatever it is that they're doing, shouldn't they already be sick and in bed? You know, they shouldn't be on the computer.
Yeah, and that is what I found so
it's weird.
so startling.
You know what, Judith? I've noticed two pictures where there was this this man dead on the street. Is that I find the onlookers more interested in the photographer than they are of the guy who's dead, quote unquote, dead on the ground. So that to me is like, why are they more curious with the photographer than they are with the dead person? They should be more curious at the dead person, because logically speaking, it would make sense for people to take pictures of someone that's dead, right? So they wouldn't even mind this person taking pictures. They're like, oh yeah, of course he's taking pictures because there's a dead person on the street, and they should be focused on the dead person instead of them looking at the dead person. They're looking at the photographer as if they're more curious with the photographer, as if maybe he has set up this whole scenario, you know, the whole scene. Like they're like, oh, so he's taking a picture of this person that's on the ground. Well, why is he doing that? You know? So to me, it's, I'm looking at the picture and just something felt really weird about it. And so that's, you know,
yeah, there were quite a number of short video clips like this, and I was really puzzled because you saw people, you know, in the middle of, you know, some activity, and all of a sudden they drop dead.
I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah, I know. If they're really that sick, shouldn't they be in bed?
Yeah, that is what I thought as well. And but of course, snippets like that give, you know, leverage to, you know, that many people say there isn't even a virus, it's all 5G.
Then the other country, I'm sorry, then the other cities that have 5G rolled out, and we're not even talking about China.
Yeah,
5G's been rolling out throughout the whole world, yet you don't hear of outbreaks.
Yeah.
you know, in those cities. I mean, you've heard of bird deaths, you know, of like tons of
Yeah.
birds,
Yeah.
you know, and you've heard of weird suicides and weird deaths that way, but not from an epidemic of, you know, viral outbreak. Not like this. So that tells me, my hunches are that it's an engineered virus, and it's
Today, I
yeah.
stumbled on a website, and funny enough, the website calls itself "Get Your Facts Straight," and it says that no, the coronavirus is not patented, and everybody can look up the patents. And another article was. No, the coronavirus virus has nothing to do with 5G. No, 5G is not harmful to humans. And I thought, oh yeah, I want to be on that email list to have my facts straight. Yeah. So another thing that I found today was Cloud Minds, that is a company, and Cloud Minds donated 5G robots to Wuhan hospital amid coronavirus crisis.
My
Your
word.
thoughts?
Oh my word. So that's the direction we're heading.
Yeah.
Gosh, wow. Well, that's you know, I've heard that the doctors and all the support staff in the hospitals are all, oh, they're all sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all sick. So I guess they do need the robots. But you know,
Yeah,
this whole thing is,
but the 5G robots probably will add to the
yes,
entire
they will
problem.
kill them just
Yeah.
being in the vicinity of the 5G robots. So they actually said 5G robots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh
We are
my God.
donating 5G robots.
Oh my gosh. Well, they also said that they're going to follow these sick people and use 5G, right? To keep track of them, to keep them quarantined, to keep tabs on all the sick people. So yeah, that's definitely ensuring that they stay sick.
I mean, it will probably not happen, but it would be interesting to see what happens to the entire coronavirus situation there in Wuhan if they shut off the 5G.
Yeah. That's actually a very creative solution. It's a logical solution.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah,
maybe we
but it will
can
not
we convince
happen.
the government to do that?
No. And there is another point where all these people, be it on school boards, senators, city councils, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What is your impression? Are we dealing here with rampant incompetence, ignorance, willful ignorance, and or straight out evilness, or all of the above?
A
What
little
is
bit
it?
of everything. I think that's why it's so hard to pinpoint the
Mm-hmm.
problem, Judith, is because it is a little bit of everything. For one thing, why do we even have Bio4 labs to begin with?
Mm.
That's evil.
Yeah.
You're messing with a virus and making it more virulent. You know, you're adding other pieces of it, and it's just wrong. You know, I never believed in genetic modification, period, especially when you're deliberately trying to make something more virulent. That's already evil. And yes, and I do think that there are certain individuals probably who know what's happening, World Health Organization level, UN level, maybe the higher Chinese parts of the government, you know, understand, hey, this might be an interesting eugenics test. You know, maybe it was planned that, I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, there are people who are actively, into promoting eugenics. I mean, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Agenda 21 and 2030 is really all about that. The sustainable really is about curtailing population growth, and controlling whomever's left over, right? That's quarantine people. That's what Agenda 2030 is all about. And that's exactly what's happening is whether this virus was meant to be released or not, I do believe that at least the elite, the globalists, are taking opportunity to turn this into a psyop. They're looking at how people behave in a city when there are, how fast can a city go downhill when there's short supply of goods? And Wuhan is a definite example of that. And what happens? How quickly can people fall ill when they're introduced to a virus in conjunction with 5G? It's a test.
I think so too.
Yeah. Otherwise, why would they be following all these people with 5G? They don't want these people to heal. They want to keep them in a status of sickness, the state of sickness, in a constant state of sickness. So I've actually seen and witnessed clandestine operations where they actually deployed certain frequencies specifically to see how ill and how quickly it will make the people ill. And this was in the United States. I didn't come up with this at that time because there were so many compromised people involved, and but it was enough to tell me that yes, they do use microwaves as a weapon for a fact. I will tell you this for a fact. They do use microwaves as a weapon, and all of this that we're exposing ourselves to already, not talking about the 5G, not talking about the effects of what's happening with Wuhan, it's all designed to be devastating to humanity, to all living organisms on this earth. And it stems from my historical research to Herman P. Schwann and his research and his body of work that point significantly to the basic structures of what we find here on our planet, which is water and blood, those, and probably the oxygen. So did they know what they were doing? And do they know what they're doing? On a very high level, they do. They do. Can you say majority of the industry people understand? Maybe some of them do and some of them don't. And so, you got the pyramid structure, the people on top really know. The people, the middlemen might know, but they don't really care because they're interested in making money. The ones at the very top aren't interested in making money. They're interested in a more grander plans, their grand plans. So you get down to the bottom, we're the recipients, we're the consumers. We're the furthest knowledge base of what's happening up here. We have to, we have to think like they do. We have to put ourselves in their mind as dark and desolate as it is. And we have to understand these quote unquote humans who have no human emotions, no human empathy, sympathy, compassion. They're completely devoid of these things. How they think. They're operating at a completely different level. And only until you can do that can you understand how devastating all this is happening and why it's happening. Then can you appreciate and be able to find solutions and resolutions and reclaim human sovereignty, human power, and start digging deep into what kind of powers did we have before? And we did have powers. We have powers of intention. We are beings that actually give off frequencies too. We're not just, this is why, Judith, I get tired of talking about how bad, 5G is, 4G is, Wi-Fi is, and blah, blah, blah. Those things give off frequencies, right? Well, recognize that we also give off frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I always tell people we have to use our powers of intention. Those are frequencies, and actually emotions, human emotions, embrace it. Okay. You talk to all the agenda 20, whatever, the social cultural engineering, they're trying to get rid of our emotions. They're trying to get rid of our gender. They're trying to get rid of anything that's human. But our emotions is actually what makes us human, what gives us our power. And we need to embrace it. We need to exercise the whole breadth of our feelings. And that is actually what powers a lot of our intentions, is our emotions.
Mm.
So, for instance, our mind, our heart has a field, has a, a field. And when it's fear-based, it shrinks. But when it's in the love phase, it's very expansive. It's very expansive. And the power of the heart is actually much more than the brain. I think the brain is like 10% of what the heart puts out. So we need to expand our heart energies, and through our intentions too. We practice living and exercising our own wants and needs, and envisioning and acting on the kind of future we want to see. So those are the type of, encouragements I give myself, give to others when things seem so devastating. It seems so devastating. So.
Yeah, and that way you are actively working against this entire agenda of AI takeover. Because in a sense, you have to be complicit, for that to happen. But if everybody would start strengthening their heart fields, take care of their intentions, divorce their smartphones to a certain degree.
Yes.
Maybe you cannot do it completely, but there is no reason to carry it around as if it is your second heart. Yeah.
Exactly. That's beautifully said, Judith. Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes when the gentlemen, they usually have it in their pants. Some women, they even stick it here in the bra. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So you irradiated your testicles for 15 years.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And now cancer? Really? Surprised?
Yeah. Prostate cancer. Oh, it impacts the bone too, their hip bones. I know lots of men where they put their phone, that portion of their hip bone crumbles. Like yeah. Hip replacements. I mean, I know this one gentleman who fell and broke his hip. He's only in his early 50s, had to get his whole hip replaced. Yeah, these things, the microwaves break down everything. Breaks down your DNA, breaks down your cell membranes, it destroys your mitochondria. And of course it impacts your tissue, it breaks down your bones. It causes all kinds of membrane leaks. It impacts not just your blood and water, but also impacts the calcium channels. Those who are familiar with Martin Pall's work, which is the voltage gated calcium channels, it causes the calcium to leak in places that's not supposed to leak, and causes oxidation and all kinds of cellular mishap. And so then the cells kick out the calcium, because what happens is the microwave strikes the cell and pushes the calcium into the cell where it doesn't belong. And then the cell's like, oh my gosh, I've got all this calcium inside. I got to get rid of it. So then it kicks out all the calcium. So that's the process of the voltage gated calcium channel leaks. So you're also impacting the calcium in your bones. You're just displacing calcium where it's not supposed to be. Like everything else, all the ions, all the molecular structures get impacted. It's a whole mess. It's really a whole mess of things. Yeah, it bends the molecules so your body doesn't recognize it, doesn't, it just, it's like a chemistry lab. It's a microchemistry lab when you're being exposed to microwaves that's penetrating. It's all these microwaves penetrate. Okay, that's fact. They penetrate and then they wreak all kinds of havoc because it's causing electrical impacts. It's causing chemical impacts, and so then it just you're going to get all kinds of weird problems that you cannot see. Not even the doctors will see it until you get cancer. Mm-hmm. But by then it's too. I mean, you don't want to get to that point.
No. No, definitely not. These people who are in the know, who understand what is going on and what it does and how harmful it is. Yes, we are dealing with psychopath and narcissists. we can rest assured that that is the case. But I mean, somehow they are in it as well. Once you have 5G all over the planet, then there is no escaping anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do they really think it will not touch them, or what's the thinking there?
The thinking is that they don't care.
Okay.
They're religious. They're very religious, and their religion is death.
Mm-hmm. It's a death card.
It's about death. So again, we're thinking like humans. We're thinking, well, how can they not realize this? How can they sacrifice their own children? Mm. It's actually biblically based. I mean, the Bible talks about how these worshipers sacrifice their own children. Mm-hmm. Is it any different today? No. It's unfortunately and devastatingly, it's still happening. So if you can understand that even parents would want to sacrifice their own kids, it's not about life. They have no respect for life, to the point where they would probably even be willing to have themselves be sacrificed because they are that devoted to this god of death, this satanic whatever, demonic whatever, this
So in other words, they once there is no living bee, bird, human, fish, whatever here, then they are happy. When there are only robots running around, and
yes, that's the world they're happy. Yeah, that's the world that they're happy to be in. That is, I don't know if you've heard, but technocracy has become a religion. Mm-hmm. AI, artificial intelligence, has become a religion for groups, and I can't remember who started it, but it's a nonprofit organization where they've created it into a religion. So,
way of the future. That is how this church is called, and it was a guy that came from Google who started it. Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, me not either.
Yeah. So it is true. Maybe maybe it's not to the point where they're sacrificing kids or anything like that, but there are folks who believe so much in the AI that the virtual world to them is everything. So it's okay, you know, they don't mind seeing the loss of all natural life because they were never connected to it to begin with.
Mm.
Um, so again, you know, the pyramid, you know, the intentions of the gradient of people's purpose is slightly different, but the end game will be the same. You know, these people who want to make AI their religion, you know, they may not think they're Satanists. They may not, you know, they may actually be against it, but they really believe that, oh, this AI thing is just so amazing, you know, at the cost of the loss of real life, biological life. And it is true. It is true because you know, I talk to people, especially ones who are really brainwashed. They go, yeah, who cares about insects? You know, who cares about? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just like, you know, it's once the insects are gone, then the animals are gone, then the pollinate, you know, well, the pollinators are gone,
And
and
you will have no food.
you will have no food. You know, there will be no vegetation because the vegetation's dependent on all the animals. And
Oh, we can send little drones for the pollination.
well, I know that's, I know that's their solution for everything, right? Oh, we won't die because we're gonna upload our soul, our emotions, our mind, you know, and sync it with the quantum computer. So we'll live forever inside this quantum computer. So yes, I mean that's the kind of mindset you're you know, you're dealing with, the reality of people who are completely brainwashed into accepting that this is the next.
The ones who have their facts straight.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what you wanted to say. The ones that are on the email list for the straight facts.
Oh my gosh. Mm.
So Lena, for those people who feel inspired, I mean, you took action, you talked to, I guess at one point you gave a 700-page dossier.
Binder?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty extreme. I go, I wish I could give you everything, but this is only 10%. I had to reduce the science down. I mean, there's so much. Oh my
You
gosh.
gave it to the school board?
Yeah, I did. And I made 7 sets. I spent over $500 US dollars making those binders. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up the entire night putting all the papers together into the binders, and then I gave it to them the next day, and I was like, I'm so
Probably
delirious.
never read it.
What?
And they probably never read it.
But you know what? That's okay, because I wanted to put evidence into their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there were ever a child that was ever damaged and wanted to sue, you know, create a lawsuit, or if there was a group lawsuit, not particular with that school, but if there was something that, you know, a group of parents wanted to do, the school board trustees can't say they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was handed to them. So I kind of give my little jewels, you know, and I sprinkle it to different groups of people for this purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's really for future lawsuits. I give them evidence, not because no, it would be great if they did read it. It would be great, but I did it to put evidence into their hands. That's really my main purpose, because I could foresee in the future that this is going to really blow up, and it is. I put these same binders in the hands of senators. I put this in the hands of the mayor of Sacramento. I put this in the hands of the attorney general. So I've been passing these binders around a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give to people that feel inspired to take action as well? Where to start, how to do it, and what not to say?
Start local.
Okay.
Always start local. Absolutely. You can protect your community, and we all need to protect our community.
Mm.
Because if you start thinking too broad, too far ahead, well, who's going to take care of your town? The best person to do it is actually you. And I've been doing that with my town. I started a grassroots movement, and we've been working with our city council members, and the majority of them take the side of the industry.
Do you think they are bribed?
Yes, they're bribed, they're controlled, they're brainwashed. And in fact, one of the council members admits that he told this to a friend of mine. She couldn't remember the group, but there's an organization that's putting pressure on the cities, the council members, and they're telling them you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
They're being told they have to roll this out.
Or what?
I don't know if there's a but or an or. They're just pressured. They're pressured that they have to accept it.
Yeah, what I mean is, where's the pressure coming from? You have to do this or else. What is the else?
They get the sense. Okay, so sustainable sustainable cities is a huge pressure on them,
Mm-hmm.
which is all part of the Agenda 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And they're thinking that this 5G rollout is part of it, is a necessary component to make this happen. So that's the pressure that I think the city council members are getting, is that 5G isn't just, it doesn't just end there. They're trying to get these council members to think more broad in their sense. 5G is a way to get the cities to a sustainable direction,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to achieve those goals. And we can't achieve those goals until we get 5G. So then of course, they don't want to be going contrary to that agenda. And what's really interesting is that if you look at how the cities are compromised further, is that they're linked with sister cities in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is how they keep each other accountable. In fact, the town I live in has 2 sister cities. One of them's in China. Another one is in Europe somewhere. I can't remember. And then you look at every single other city, they all have sister cities in other parts of the world. So that's a way of networking, really controlling, so that it makes these small towns feel like, oh my gosh, I got the whole world looking at me. I can't fall out of line. Mm-hmm. I got to be a soldier in this, because we're all in it together. We all have to fulfill this grand agenda that the UN has created, or UNESCO, or whoever, the Agenda 2030 planners, have created. So that's the kind of pressure, and how they can get local community leaders to do their bidding. There's a lot of methods, there's lots of ways, but this is one method that I found was very fascinating. It's a cultural psyop, it's a cultural manipulation, to get these cities to do what they want. And so really, when they look at 5G, they see it as a broader, part to this to facilitating this sustainable city. And that is why, what is it that Greta Thunberg and, AOC, the Green New Deal, all these young young folks are coming out of the woodwork. They're being placed in those, powerful, influential situations and positions is because they're catering and tailoring this to the younger generation that, hey, the older generation biffed, we messed up on this. Look, climate change is an issue. We're going to fix it. We, the young generation, we're going to fix it. And this is how we're going to do it. So that's what we're fighting against. And when you're fighting against 5G, you have to understand that they think, okay, your council members, all of them think that 5G is going to save our world. We need to fight climate change. So those two things are pretty much in tandem. In fact, they look at climate change as the number one thing. Everything else is just a subsidiary fix. It's a fix. But we need to tell them, look, no, 5G is going to connect billions and billions of energy hogging devices. And the pre-production, the mining of the minerals is devastating on the environment. And the production of it is terrible. Look at China again. Look at China, the pink lakes from the Apple products being manufactured. They dump all the sludge and to the point where the lake is pink. I mean, it just miles and miles of pink sludge. It's that disgusting. We're poisoning our earth. So again, why do we need to divorce ourselves from technology? It's not just the frequencies, but it's a whole production process. So pre-production. And then the production, the usage of the device while it's being, you're charging it. Each phone basically requires the use of the power of running your refrigerator. So if you're a family of 4 and you each have smartphones and you charge it up every day, it's like you're running 5 refrigerators. 1, your real refrigerator, and 4 smartphones is the equivalent of running 5 refrigerators per household. So is that sustainable? So these are examples that I give to the city council members to try to expand their thinking beyond what they've been told. Right? They've been brainwashed. They've been told to think this way, but no. You gotta be a little bit more creative. Be more expansive and understand on a global level what all these devices really do. So that's one. So the usage and also then you got the e-waste. E-waste is a huge problem. I mean, we've all seen the movie WALL-E, right? Is it a Pixar movie? WALL-E, which is a robot that went back to Earth to try to find life. And and it was just a huge pile of junk, like electronic junk. Yeah, no, it was a Disney movie, WALL-E, WALL-E. Yeah, it's actually a very very telling movie. Yeah, people. Yeah, it's.
So in other words, you have to start educating them, and you have to tell them what you want and do not want.
Yes, you do. You have to start educating them. And in the end, if they still do roll out any part of the 5G, 4G, then your legal position will be that much stronger, because then you've exhausted your remedies, all your remedies. You've told them repeatedly, this and this, and you've shown them policies, you've shown them legal laws they're breaking. They're breaking certain technical issues. You can't meld, for instance, an antenna that has tons of voltage, wattage of energy running into it onto a pole that has power lines under it. That's actually an endangerment. That's actually a technical. It's in the United States. It goes against OSHA. It's an operations issue. You're not supposed to be able to put anything above power lines, especially not another electrical unit. So, there's a lot of technical ways of stopping it. There's a lot of policy issues that can stop it. And in America, another way of stopping it is the Americans for Disability Act. You cannot deploy this close to homes of people who are electrically sensitive. There's the NEPA that we're also exercising, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, meaning that any small cell has to go through an environmental assessment. And especially if it radiates out more than 1,000 watts of power. It's effective radiated power. That is a way to stop it. There's many methods. We can get creative, and we should get creative. And don't let the city council members tell you our hands are tied, because they're not. Remember, they don't have the time, they don't care to do the research. They don't serve the people necessarily.
None of them.
It's easier for them to listen to industry. So you have to do the homework for them. It would help you in the long run, whether they listen to you or not, because then you can always turn that into a lawsuit or an injunction. You stop work because you're injuring, you're damaging, you're trespassing. There's a lot of legal ways of stopping it. They can all be exercised, and they all should be exercised. And if you do this within your community, it strengthens your community. In fact, what's been very revelatory for my group is that numbers of people in my group have said this has been a life-changing experience for them. They never realized how compromised the government really is, how ignorant our leaders really are, and how they themselves have suddenly learned empowerment. These are people who have never spoken in public, situations before, and these are people who don't want to make waves. That's the majority of us. I'm not a confrontational person. In fact, I grew up so not confrontational that I would go out of my way that to not make waves. I was brought up to be, a very quiet, amenable, Chinese girl. I had very strict parents, and the Chinese culture, a lot of the Asian culture really is, you just go with the flow. You humble yourself over others. You don't step out of line. You make the grades, you climb the ladder that's put in front of you, and you do this and this and get good grades, go to good school and get a good job, and marry such and such, and have numbers of kids, and make sure those kids get go to college and blah blah blah. So the ladder is very, very laid out for you, and that's how you're kind of coached by my parents and grandparents and blah blah blah. So it's a very, we're all kind of going the same direction, all of us, right? So what was really interesting is that these groups of people that have grown with me through this whole grassroots process have given probably the most touching testimonies I've ever heard. Amongst ourselves and in front of the city council members. They were speaking out of their hearts, through their minds. It was filled with emotion and intelligence. And I couldn't be more prouder than them. So in the end, did we make the council members do what we want? Not necessarily. but that's not a loss, because it doesn't end. You know, the battle doesn't end, and it never ends, and it's a process. You know, it's like what I call a marathon. You know, you have to take each step at a time. You don't skip steps. You know, every runner, literally, to get to the finish line, has to take every single step. You can't miss a step. There's, so that's the kind of hope and perseverance I try to encourage people, is that things may look dystopic right now or devastating, and if you dig deep into the rabbit holes, you feel like, oh, I can never get out of it. It's just it's a maze, right? You'll get lost. Yeah, you got to extract yourself out of it. Okay, you got to take yourself out of it. Every once in a while, you do, for your own sanity. You have to put on, safety personal measures. You got to guard against your own energies. And so, because it's a marathon, you just have to be gentle with yourself, one step at a time. Yeah. You will get there. You will get there. And trust me, the one thing that the globalists do not count on is our perseverance. They underestimate and they undermine us all the time. So use this to your advantage. Okay, they underestimate us. Use that to your advantage.
Yeah, and I think we also have to take our language back. At the beginning of this interview, when you talked about sustainability, and you felt the urge to say, yeah, the real sustainability, not what the UN and blah, blah. Yeah, sustainability is a good word. There's nothing wrong with it, but all of that has been hijacked, distorted, twisted, and inverted. So it's really time to take that back.
I completely agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it cannot be that we have to excuse ourselves when we use the word sustainability.
I know, they confuse our language. They're confusing all these words that do mean good.
Yeah. I know what they made out of sustainability. That's really frightening, but yeah, we need to take it back.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Lena, that was very, very interesting. And I thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk to me. And I hope you come back one day.
Yes. I'd love to. I'd love to. This is great.
Yeah, there were...
You're great. I love having this conversation with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. And there are a lot of gems in here, little gems in this conversation, and probably things that people haven't heard, that are listening to a lot of 5G talks. And so, yeah, thank you very much. This was it, Night Flight for today. And we see you all next time. Stay safe and sound and take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.